In today's video, I am going to share some insights, some questions, some due diligence that you can actually ask yourself when you're looking at people online. So, people to follow, maybe people that you want to get advice from, hire as a consultant or as a coach. And we're going to go through, I'm going to go through and talk about that because I know I'll share more in just a minute why. But there's a lot of people out there, and some of them are wolves in sheep's clothing, if you will. And so I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about that today and some key points for you to think about, like don't judge a book by its cover. Have they been in the trenches? Don't be fooled by the number of followers and bragging, and you get what you pay for. So let me give you a little context because a lot of the people who are online, a lot of the people that you may see on social media are not who they claim to be. Okay. People are putting on their best face. Some of the people actually aren't even real people. So I have lots of connection requests every day, and probably at least 20 to 30% of them are not actually even real people. They're fake profiles that people have put up to try to get my personal information. And so, like I said, I spend quite a bit of time online connecting with other people, and kind of looking at some of the different profiles that pop up for me. And what I've noticed is, especially many of the people who claim to know about internal audit, who claim to be consultants or coaches in internal audit, they don't really seem like they know what they're talking about. And so I want to just share some things with you today so you can do your own due diligence, right? Because it's important for you to understand who you want to follow, who you want to listen to, who you want to pay attention to, and even take advice from. And so let's get in and talk about that. Now, I have been in the professional development space for a long time. And there is a joke in the professional development space that the title of this video is based on. And it goes something like this: oh, to be as confident as a 19-year-old life coach. And to those of us in the industry, it's really funny. Why? Because if you go online, there's actually even a lot of people who are 19 and 20-year-old people who have gone out and done a 2-week coaching course, and all of a sudden now they are a life coach. And so they are selling their services to people to coach them on life situations. Now, why is that so funny? So funny for me because if somebody's 19 years old, they're probably still living with their parents. They've never gone to college, or if they have, maybe they're a freshman in college. They've never had a long-term relationship. They've probably never been married. They've probably never had financial issues to deal with. They've never had significant relationship issues to deal with. And yet, people will pay money to these people to get advice. And again, like I said, it's so funny, but it's not funny. And that's why I'm doing this video today. So, as I said, I see a lot of people online, and I go in and I see their headline and I see, how they portray themselves. And for example, retired chief audit executive providing advice and coaching services to chief audit executives. Sounds great. Sounds wonderful. And then I go and look at their profile, and I find out that they really haven't been a chief audit executive, or if they have, maybe it's only been for a year or two. It appears as though their retirement came because they were fired from a job and they couldn't find another job, so they started their own consulting business. Now, there's a lot of reasons why that person may not be the person you want to listen to. And we'll get into more of that here in just a minute. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but some things to consider. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of these areas for you to kind of consider or think about as you're looking at people online, right? And try to find out, is this somebody who actually knows what they're talking about? Is this somebody who I can really get advice from? Are they really who they say they are? Because a lot of times people are not. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some kind of real life examples with you, and I'm going to relate this back to internal audit. And sometimes I will use myself, right? And the only reason is because I know about myself, and just to kind of help make a point on some of this. So I'm going to use myself as my own kicking bag and example a little bit as well. So the first thing to consider is, don't judge a book by its cover. That is a saying that has been around for a long time, right? Is what is on the outside is not necessarily what is on the inside. And so, if the binding on the outside of the book looks wonderful, it's leather bound, everything looks wonderful, and then you open the book and you find out it's a bunch of blank pages inside. Well, you judge that book from the outside instead of what's on the inside. On the flip side, the book could have a ratty tatty cover on it. It may not look that appealing, and yet when you open the pages and you start reading what's inside of it, wow, you're just blown away. Okay, so how does this show up? Well, a lot of times we make judgments. We're biased based on our beliefs, and we look at people on the outside. So, as an example, you may look at me and say, Jason, you look kind of crazy. You've got this big old beard. You wear a hat. You wear t-shirts. You don't look very professional. And some people may judge me, right, by the way that I look. That's judging a book by its cover. Now, if you got to know me, if you have, looked at who I am and what I actually do, it would probably be silly for you to judge my knowledge, to judge my expertise, to judge my ability to help you by my physical appearance, right? Now, my physical appearance is this way because this is how I like to be, right? I'm not putting on a show. I'm not wearing a suit and tie to try to impress you into how smart I am. I just talk, and you can figure out if you think I know what I'm talking about or not. That's entirely up to you. I'm not here, right, to try to convince you of anything. I'm not here to try to trick you into thinking I am something that I am not. So, how does this also work out? Well, a lot of times people will embellish their profile, they'll embellish their resume, they'll try to say that they're a little more than what they really are. They'll say things like, oh, yeah, I'm retired. Really? You're in your 40s and you're retired? I mean, internal audit doesn't pay that well. Are you kidding me that you're retired? Right? That's again, someone maybe trying to claim something that they're not. Right? When in fact, what probably happened is they got fired. Hey, it's okay. I got fired from one of my jobs. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? But if someone has been fired from their job, probably because they got sideways with management and maybe didn't do their job the way they could, and then have difficulty finding a new job, well, that's a little different, right? If they can't find a new job, how good are they really? And do you want to accept advice from them? Now, it can look that way as far as people embellishing their performance, embellishing their experience on their resume, on their social media profile, right? It can also be in the way they dress, in the buzzwords they use, in things like that as well, to kind of prop themselves up more than what they really are, right? So One of the first things, like I said, don't judge a book by its cover. Just because somebody looks the professional part, because they're wearing a nice suit in their profile picture, because their profile looks so wonderful, don't just believe what you're reading, right? Don't judge that book by the cover. Try to find out if there is substance behind it. Now, how are you going to see if there's substance behind it? They're going to have posted or do something online. Don't just look at somebody's profile. Again, you can go out and look at my profile. I have been on LinkedIn for many, many, many years. I mean, I think since 2007 or 2009, I don't know, whenever LinkedIn pretty much started, I've been there. There's lots of content online about me. You can look at my profile, but you can also go back and watch videos. I've done over 1,000 videos. You can look at different posts that I've made, other things like that, to see, am I really who I am portraying myself to be? Does the content that I'm providing actually match up with who I say I am? If you're looking at somebody to follow online and they really have no content, or someone wants to sell you consulting or coaching services and they really have nothing online from a content perspective, you may want to be a little wary of that. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one, have they been in the trenches? Okay, so this goes back to kind of a military metaphor. If you're going to follow somebody into battle, is it better to follow someone in who's actually been in war before and actually knows what they're doing and has actually been in the trenches, has been there, done that, or to follow somebody who looks nice? They're a brand new graduate out of West Point. Well, I'm going to take the person with experience, and I'm going to share with you a little story that's actually about that. I met a man in Germany many years ago, and he came from a wealthy family, but he couldn't keep his mouth shut, and so he kept getting himself in trouble. And it was during the Second World War. He got pulled into the army, the German army, and he didn't follow orders very well. And so they they ended up assigning him to this, effectively, a group of people who were murderers, rapists, prisoners, other people like that, who they would send out to the front. They would send out in front of everybody else first, because they considered them expendable, right? They were people who they didn't really want anyway. And I remember he told me, the only reason I made it through the war was because of those men that I was assigned. They were people who knew how to fight. They had more experience fighting in the war than anybody else, right? And so because of that, he learned a lot, and it kept him alive, right? As opposed to if he would have gone into the military, he was from a rich family, could have gotten some cushy position somewhere, and chances are he may not have made it through. And so it's the same way in our own personal development as well, right? You want to follow people who've actually been there and done that. They have lots of different experience. They've helped lots of different people, right? So they have lots of different perspectives that can help you. And as I said, I see a lot of people online who are claiming to be something they are not. And what especially bothers me are people who claim to be consultants and coaches for chief audit executives when they never have actually had a chief audit executive role. Now, how does this show up? There's a lot of people who have worked for a professional services firm. And maybe it was in a professional role, maybe it was in a marketing role, but because they spent some time at a public accounting firm or a consulting firm, now all of a sudden, right, they claim to be this expert for chief audit executives. Well, there's a big difference between being a service provider who's doing some internal audit work and somebody who's actually been an employee and been employed as a chief audit executive at an organization. Big difference. Now, I'm not discounting that the experience is good that some of these people may have had, but it's not the same. It is not the same. Okay. I see people who work for technology companies, you know, technology companies that provide services to internal audit. So again, think about work paper, tools. Think about data analytic tools, other things like that. And they've worked for these companies in a marketing position. So they've been a salesperson. They've been a salesperson selling internal audit software. Does that qualify them as an expert and someone who can coach chief audit executives and audit leaders? My opinion, no, because they have not actually been in the trenches, right? They haven't actually done the work. Yeah, they're networked great. They have a huge email list, right? And they've got a fancy picture. And oh my gosh, I worked for XYZ company for years. But when you dig in and you look at their profile, they've never really had audit leadership roles as an employee in an organization. Is that somebody you want to follow? Is that someone you want to take advice from? Again, it's up to you, right? But know what you're getting yourself into. How also does it look? Well, again, sometimes I see people who claim to have been a chief audit executive. I look at their profile and I see that maybe they were an audit manager or a director, and maybe they had a chief audit executive role for a year. Well, how much experience do you get after a year? Not a whole lot, right? Myself, I've been a chief audit executive twice, two different multi-billion-dollar companies for 9 or 10 years combined. That's way different than somebody who's only been an internal audit manager and now claims that they're an expert and can help audit leaders, right? So have they been in the trenches? That's number two, right? Look at their actual experience. And again, you don't have to just trust what they're saying in their profile. Look at what they're sharing. Are they actually sharing experiences from the trenches? Are they actually sharing experiences that are relative? Right? I saw somebody again this last week who shared an experience, and it was again directed towards audit leaders, but it was an experience of this person being an audit manager. And it was something where they just totally did not even understand what was going on. They were making a bigger deal out of something that was not material. So, look for things like that. Is that really, something that a chief audit executive would have brought up? Is that a way that they would have responded? No. This person was an audit senior or an audit manager when that actually happened. So you can actually look at, some of the examples and experiences that people are sharing to know if they've actually been in the trenches. Okay, number 3, don't be fooled by the number of followers and bragging. Whew. Okay, now I don't know how many people, look at, how many connections people have, how many followers they have. But if we go back to our 19-year-old life coaches, I can tell you, because again, I have a lot of friends who are in the life coaching business. They're in business coaching. And some of these people in their 20s have millions of followers, literally millions of followers, and they're making millions of dollars a year. And again, I kind of scratch my head that people would pay them that kind of money for advice when they haven't actually lived yet, right? Because as I said, if you're 19 years old, if you're in your 20s, you probably don't have a lot of experience with life, right? Now, I have gray hair. It's mainly white. I've been through a lot in my life. And I will tell you, I'm not going to share everything that I've been through right now, but pretty much think about any struggle that one may have as an adult. I've lived it. I've lived it. I've gone through it, right? I've been married multiple times, had lots of different relationships, financial issues, job issues, other things like that over time. Because I understand better because I've gone through a lot of these things many times. And, so don't be fooled by the number of followers. If somebody has millions of followers or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers, that doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're talking about. It means somebody pushed the follow them button. And why did somebody push the follow them button? Because a lot of other people have too. And because of that, they want to be, oh man, this person has 1 million followers, so I should follow them too. Well, do your research first, right? Don't be confused or fooled by the number of followers. Now, for myself, I don't even know exactly how many I have. I think I've got 20 some thousand connections on LinkedIn. I don't care. Does that make me important? Does it not make me important? I don't know. For some of you, you might think, oh my gosh, she has 20,000 followers or connections, whatever they're called, right? But don't follow me just because of the number of connections I have. But also, don't follow me just because I don't have 1 million followers, right? Because again, a lot of times the people that don't have millions of followers are the people who are actually saying things that really matter. The bragging, again, a lot of people come online and they brag, 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 brag. And you can see a lot of people are taught, how to sell, how to show yourself as an expert, how to say things in a certain way subconsciously so people will believe you. Now, I've been taught all those things, but I choose not to follow them. I could sit here and I could manipulate you and I could get you into a place of fear and scarcity and make you feel like you have to have my services, but I don't do that because that's not who I am. I'm not here to brag. Have I done things? Yeah. Have I done everything? No. Have I been in the trenches? Oh, you bet I have been. I've seen a lot of things. I've watched a lot of people go down, from a military experience. I've watched a lot of my friends die in the trenches. I've been wounded severely myself, from a corporate politics standpoint. I know what certain things look like because I've gone through it. I've experienced it, right? But I don't sit here and brag about it either. I just share my experiences. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, great, right? So don't get sucked into the number of followers people may have or what they may say from a bragging perspective. Again, in an internal audit, you should know better. You should have some professional skepticism. You should think critically. And like I said, don't believe what I say. Go look online, go look at other stuff that I've done. You can talk to people who I've worked with before. You can see testimonials about me. You don't have to believe me. And I'm not here to brag to convince you of anything, right? Now, the fourth one to wrap up on today. You get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. And when you pay attention, right? Those are a couple of sayings, again, in the personal development space. So what does it mean? Well, I do a lot of things for free because I'm just giving. I want to share with people. I don't want people to make the same mistakes that I did. And so I've given away a lot of my content for free over the years. Now, I still have a business to run. I still charge for certain things. But, just because something is free doesn't mean it's of value. But just because it's, free doesn't mean it doesn't have value either, right? And so you have to kind of figure that out. But when you pay for something, you tend to pay attention. And so here's an example. As I said, I give away, a lot of my content for free. And some people will just register for anything that's free, but they don't actually use it, right? That's where when you pay attention. So what does that look like? Well, I have some people, that will come out to Sea Risk Academy. They'll find every free course on Sea Risk Academy. They'll dig through 500 courses and they'll find the ones that Jason isn't charging for, and they'll register for 20 of them all at one time. Great. But you know what I know? Those people won't actually watch the training because I get the analytics. I see. And the people who go out and just sign up for anything and everything that's free, they don't actually use it. Whereas if people actually pay something, you pay $9, $20, $100, now you've got skin in the game. Now you're going to pay attention. Now you're actually going to go do something with it. And so, again, free advice is great, but you usually get more when you actually pay for it. And again, you can choose to pay, not pay. That's up to you. But here's something else that you may not realize about: you get what you pay for. So again, look at a lot of these people who are supposedly so big online. They're so smart. They're a knowledge leader in this, that, or the other, whatever. And then look at what they actually charge per hour for their services. Now, I will tell you, if someone is charging $50 to $150 for their services per hour, they don't know what they're talking about. They're either so desperate because they don't have any clients, or they don't value what they are providing. And so people at the $50 to $150 range per hour, probably you're not going to get very good information from them. Now, let's use a parallel for this. If you were to go out and hire an attorney, would you hire an attorney that only charged you $50 to $150 an hour? I wouldn't, right? The attorneys I use tend to charge between $400 and $500 an hour because they actually know what they're talking about. And I'm willing to pay $400 or $500 an hour for better advice than $100 for somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. And so again, one of the ways that you can kind of differentiate people is how much do they charge per hour? And if they're not valuing what they are providing, if they're not charging a rate that is commensurate with an expert in that area, then you're going to get what you pay for. So if they're going to give you everything for free, well, you're going to get what you pay for. If you pay $50 an hour for their advice, well, you're going to get what you pay for. If you pay $500 an hour for their advice, well, you're going to get what you pay for, right? And again, some people look at me and say, wow, Jason, you charge $500 an hour. Yes, I do. Because you know what? When I was in public accounting, the firm was billing me $500 to $800 an hour. When I was in public accounting, that's how much the firm would bill my time for. So, being who I am, the equivalent of an experienced partner at a Big Four firm. And how do I know? Because if I would have stayed in public accounting, that's what I'd be right now. Because all my friends who were still in public accounting, that's where they are. I would be billing over probably $1,000 an hour for my time if I was still in public accounting. I'm not, right? But does that mean that what I am providing has no value or is only worth $50 an hour? No, right? It's worth $500. In fact, it's worth a lot more than that, but I only charge $500. Okay. A lot of people in the professional development space will charge $1,000 to $2,000 an hour. That's normal. Some people getting business coaching are paying $3,000 or $4,000 per hour for some of the services that they're getting, and they're paying, right? So you get what you pay for. And again, it's not to say that I'm all that. It's not to say that you need to work with me. It's not anything about that, but you're going to get what you pay for, right? And so just something for you to consider and to think about. So I'm going to wrap up for today. But again, the purpose of this video was to help you understand there are lots of people online who want you to follow them. There are lots of people online who want you to hire them as a consultant. There are lots of people online who want you to hire them as a coach. Great. But do your due diligence. Think about some of the things that we've talked about today, right? Don't judge a book by its cover. Have they been in the trenches? Don't be fooled by the number of followers or their bragging, and you get what you pay for. And I promise you, when you go through and actually think about that critically, you're going to have a lot better experience, because when you don't, you often get burned. And I see this all the time with people who spend a lot of money and don't get the results that they're looking for. And so I want to make sure that you do. And even, if you're not spending money, if you're just following somebody online for what they're offering for free, follow people who actually know what they're talking about. Your time is worth a lot. And, to listen to people, to get filled with garbage that they're spewing online really just hurts you, right? Because you don't have a lot of time. It's taking up brain bandwidth that could be used somewhere else. So even if you're not paying somebody, use some of these guidelines to figure out if it's somebody who's even worth following. And if you decide it's not, well, you can always unfollow them, right? And find people who resonate with you. And maybe here's a fifth one to end with. What's really important is to find somebody that you resonate with, people that you like. And, I remember one of my professors when I was doing my undergrad in accounting. He had his own CPA practice. He did taxes during the tax season. In fact, he was a funny guy. He would he'd work all day teaching classes. He'd do taxes all night. He had a cot in his office, I think, at the university, and at his CPA office. He actually never went home for several days because he would just work nonstop. But I remember him telling us one time, he said, there are so many people that can do taxes. Lots of people do taxes out there, right? So why do my clients choose to work with me? It's because they like me, right? I'm no better than anybody else. They just like me as a person, right? Because again, there's lots of qualified people that are out there that could help you with things like your taxes. So maybe also look for somebody that you resonate with, somebody that speaks in a way that speaks to you. Somebody who makes things simple that you can understand. If people can't speak in a way that you can understand, they really don't understand the concepts they're trying to share. And so maybe there's a bonus fifth one for you as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for today's video. Thanks for listening. And again, if you have questions about this, reach out to me on social media and see if I can provide you some guidance, at least on where to look, or some people that may be worth following. But again, you're the one that has to do the work and figure out who those people are. So with that, signing off. I'll see you on the next video.